Start practicing these 5 things and you can improve your riding immediately. So we're going to go over how you can fix your bouncy seat in the canter, learn how to ride with as little amount of effort as possible, improve your communication with your horse, and more. So let's get into it. First, I want to clarify that I was self-taught because I didn't have the resources to have a trainer. The only things I had was my mom knew a bit of riding and YouTube. So basically, the reason I do what I do now is because I wish I had this information when I was younger looking for ways to help my riding. But I did find a lot of very helpful videos and I studied a lot of the best riders, so that's pretty much where I learned. I also want to say that if you have a trainer, it's still important to get a lot of other opinions, and just because you pay them to train you doesn't mean they own you in any way, so you can learn whatever you want, you can train your horse however you want. And if you think there's a way that you can train your horse that your trainer does not agree with, then possibly rethink your trainer. One of the reasons I love to ride multiple different disciplines is because I feel like they all have something different to offer as far as learning something new and your seat and balance. So just because I train my horse how to run barrels doesn't mean I can't also do jumps with my horse, or because I do jumps with my horse doesn't mean I can't do barrels with my horse, because it might seem weird, but learning both barrel racing and jumping kind of help each other out in a way. Because jumping, you have to learn collection, and your horse has to be really sensitive to leg pressure and soft cues, which really helps when you transfer over to barrel racing, because then you can use a lot of leg pressure and less rein, and you get better turns because you're not yanking on the horse's face. Plus, I feel like when you learn English riding, it kind of helps to soften your seat a little bit. You become a little bit less loud in the saddle, if you know what I mean. So let's get started with our tips, shall we? Number 1, I bet if you've had a trainer or if you watch a lot of training videos, you'll hear this a lot. Stick your heels down, right? Well, this is true, but you also want to be careful about how far you stick your heel down, because you don't want to be forcing your heel to the ground. That's going to cause your whole leg to come forward, as you can see, when you stick your heel straight to the ground. It'll also be very straining on your knees, plus holding this position is going to keep your legs tense and it'll stick you in the chair position, which will make posting very dramatic, which is going to make you rock back and forth like this. And if you want a quiet leg, you need your leg to be soft and underneath you so that you can pick yourself up straight with quiet movement. So yes, we want our heels down, but we want it to be soft because we want our weight to be in the palm of our foot where our stirrup is going to be. And our heel is just going to relax down. We're not forcing it down, it's just going to be relaxed. Now you don't want your heels to look like this because again, you're bringing your legs forward, it's going to tilt you forward, you're going to have a lot worse balance. You're also going to be putting excess pressure on your horse's sides, which is usually a cue for them to go faster. So relax your heels, put the weight in the palm of your foot, in the center of your stirrup, and this should really help keep your legs quiet and help with your leg swinging. If you have issues with your legs swinging a lot while you're riding, you want quiet legs, so this should help. For my tip number 2, we're going to go over how to fix our bouncy canter seat. I've had quite a few people ask me how to keep from bouncing or having a lot of movement while you canter, so let's go over it, shall we? Now, I've said this before quite a lot, and I'll say it again to add to the collection. I think one of the biggest things that'll help you here is to practice riding bareback. I rode mostly bareback for my first 5 years of knowing how to ride, maybe even more than that. And I think it was a good start, and I think I have a decent seat because of it. So I recommend doing that. But like I've said before, and I'll warn you again, that riding bareback can be painful for your horse's back and for yours, and may cause long-term pain in your tailbone and your horse's spine. So just be aware and don't overdo it. Don't do long distance, don't do a lot of running, just do a lot of sitting, grazing, trotting occasionally, and I think it'll really help. But we can also go over how to fix our canter in the saddle. So to achieve a quiet seat, the only spot in your body that you want to be moving is your hips and your torso. The rest of your body should be still. Again, we want very quiet legs. We don't want our legs swinging, so we want our legs to be stable. And we don't want the upper part of our body doing a lot of this. So we're going to be absorbing a lot of the movement and the rock in our hips and our torso. And that's going to keep the rest of our body pretty quiet. You never want your butt leaving your seat. So what you can do is you put your hand under your butt while you canter, and if your butt is landing on your hand hard, then you're bouncing. And also that is uncomfortable for the horse to have you slamming on their back with every rock they make. So that can cause a lot of back pain for them, and it can also cause back pain for you because slamming down on your tailbone over and over again is not going to feel great after a while. So we never want our butt to leave the saddle, and we never want our legs coming up here. We don't want any swinging like this. You know those animals on the coil at the playground when you sit on them and you go like this back and forth? I see a lot of people riding their horses at a canter like that, and that's not great because while we're rocking with the horse, we're kind of throwing our weight around. We're also leaving the saddle, bouncing back into it. Our legs are swinging, so we don't have as much anchor because our legs are our source of stability. So if your legs are swinging a lot, you're losing some of that stability. So quiet, anchored legs, your weight in the palm of your foot will create way better stability, and you'll be way less likely to fall off or go over the head if they stop immediately. So we don't want to be doing the animal on the coil canter. If you know, you know. Tip number 3, we got quiet cues. Now this is going to help your communication with your horse a lot, and it's going to clean up your riding a lot so that it looks like you know what you're doing instead of using a lot of rein movements and a lot of kicking and loud cues like that. What we want to do is we want to quiet those movements so that we can use as little amount of effort as possible to move our horse around, so we don't have to be swinging our legs a lot, moving our arms a lot. It's exhausting. And it's also exhausting on the horse to have them being yanked this way, kicked that way. We can communicate quieter. We're using the same amount of pressure, and the horse already knows what you're asking because they know what that pressure means, but you're just doing it in a quieter tone. So if we're going that way, we can pull our horse that way, or we can make it quiet and we can keep our hand right here and we can use our leg and we can just go that way instead of going that way, if that makes sense. Obviously, quieting your cues is going to take some practice and getting used to, but it's definitely a habit you want to start training yourself into because it becomes second nature once you start doing it. The more we quiet our cues, the easier it is to communicate with our horse and get them to do what we want, and it takes less effort for us. It just starts with quieting your cues. Instead of slamming your feet like that, you just tap. Tip number 4 is pretty similar to number 3, and that is having intention, which is basically just like using body language, but that is what body language is. It's just having intention. So if you were gonna go forward and you were just sitting here and you're like, oh, I wanna go that way, so let it go. I mean, you could do that, and if your horse knows what kicking means, then okay. But if you want it to be subtle, and you want to have intention, and you want to be able to train your horse on body language and being able to ride off your seat, then what you do is you use intention and energy, and you squeeze with your legs, and you just pick your reins up. We can get our horse to do the same thing without kicking them. We're envisioning what we want to do and what we want the horse to do before we ask them of it. So you think, oh, I'm gonna go over there. So you basically lift yourself up as if you were going to walk over there. And then you squeeze with your legs and you go forward because that's where you wanna go. That's where you go. Horses communicate with each other through body language. So they already know what body language is, but we are the ones that have to learn it. It's actually not that complicated, and it's quite easy to learn. So if you just start practicing it, you will very quickly improve and become softer on your cues and have better success with your horse. And for my tip number 5, I'm going to suggest that you film yourself. It may sound funny, it may sound cringe, but it really helps. Even if you have a trainer, you want to be able to see your own riding so that you can critique yourself, because maybe your trainer just doesn't care about some things that you might care about, or notice some things that you might notice, and you'll be able to see things like maybe your saddle doesn't fit as well as you thought it did, or maybe you're riding a little off-centered, or maybe you're bouncing more in the canter than you thought you were, or maybe your leg is a little bit louder than you thought it was. Maybe your horse isn't actually in collection like you thought it was, or maybe your horse looks a little off in its back leg, or maybe you could be a little bit quieter in your cues and your reins. So as long as you know what to look for and how to fix it, setting up a camera and filming yourself and going back and just studying how you look, it's going to really improve yourself. And I know some of the fancier barns out there have mirrors in their barns, but I still think that having a camera set up would be very helpful too, because you can't watch yourself riding in the mirror while you're riding. So set up a camera, your phone, whatever you have, and just film your sessions and go back and study it and see what you can improve. All right guys, that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a big like and subscribe. You can go follow me on Instagram and TikTok. I post new videos every single Sunday, so don't forget to come back next week Sunday, and I'll see you next week Sunday. Okay, bye!